It was supposed to be a routine courtroom hearing, quiet, formal, and predictable. But when a tiny 3-year-old girl was brought in to testify, the air shifted. Everyone in the room, the judge, lawyers, and police officers, watched in silence as she climbed onto the witness stand, her little hands trembling. She looked across the courtroom and locked eyes with the police dog sitting beside his handler. For a few seconds, everything stopped. Then, with tears filling her eyes, she raised her finger, pointed straight at the German Shepherd, and whispered 2 words that no one expected. What she said next shattered hearts and revealed a truth that changed everything. The courtroom was heavy with silence, the kind that made even the ticking clock sound too loud. Rows of uniformed officers sat at attention, their faces unreadable. Reporters whispered from the back, cameras ready to capture every second of the trial that had gripped the entire town. At the center sat a small wooden witness stand, and beside it, a child's chair no one expected to use. When the bailiff opened the side door, every head turned. A woman stepped in, holding the hand of a tiny girl in a pink dress. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Her big blue eyes darted nervously around the room, her small fingers clutching her stuffed bunny for comfort. The judge adjusted his glasses, visibly uncertain. "Are you sure she understands what's happening?" he asked gently. The guardian nodded. "She remembers that night," she whispered. "She's the only one who does." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. Could a toddler really help solve the mystery that had left a family shattered? No one was convinced, except the officer sitting in the corner with a loyal German shepherd by his side. The dog lifted his head, eyes locked on the little girl. Something stirred. The little girl hesitated at the edge of the courtroom, her guardian gently guiding her toward the stand. The wooden chair seemed far too big for someone so small. She climbed onto it slowly, her bunny clutched tightly against her chest. The judge offered a kind smile, but she didn't look at him. Her eyes were wandering, searching for something familiar in the sea of strangers. Then she saw him. The police dog sitting quietly beside Officer Mark Jensen. The big German shepherd wore his K9 vest proudly, but his posture wasn't rigid like the others. His ears perked up the moment her gaze met his. His tail lowered, his eyes softened, and he let out a faint whine that broke the courtroom silence. Mark frowned slightly. Rex wasn't supposed to react like that. Not here, not now. But there was something unmistakable in the way the dog looked at the little girl, something deeper than recognition. The judge cleared his throat. "Order, please," he said, though his voice carried more curiosity than authority. The child tilted her head, whispering softly, "Doggy." Everyone leaned in. Rex shifted, as if remembering something, his eyes locked on her face. The air thickened. Something powerful, unspoken, connected them both. The courtroom had never been this quiet. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The prosecutor knelt beside the little girl, speaking softly. "Sweetheart," he said gently, "can you tell us what you remember from that night?" The child blinked, her eyes flickering between the man and the dog sitting across the room. Her tiny fingers trembled as she pointed, not at any person, but straight at the German shepherd. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. "Him," she whispered. "Hero dog." The judge's brows furrowed in confusion. "You mean that dog?" The girl nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "He barked loud. He saved me." Her voice was soft, but every word carried weight. Officer Mark Jensen froze, his hand tightening around Rex's leash. He remembered that night too, the chaos, the smoke, the explosion. But how could this child possibly remember him? The prosecutor leaned closer. "What did he do, sweetheart?" The girl swallowed hard. "He didn't let the bad man take me," she said, voice trembling. "He barked and barked until boom. And he covered me." She wrapped her tiny arms around her bunny, mimicking how Rex had shielded her. The courtroom was no longer a place of law. It was a place of revelation. Every heart in that room understood it now. The little girl wasn't accusing the dog. She was thanking him for saving her life. A stunned silence followed the little girl's words. Even the judge sat motionless, his pen frozen above his notes. Officer Mark Jensen glanced down at Rex, the loyal K9 sitting beside him, and for the first time, he realized why the dog had reacted so strongly when she entered the room. It wasn't coincidence. It was memory. The prosecutor's voice was gentle now. "Officer Jensen," he said, "can you explain what happened that night?" Mark took a deep breath, his eyes distant as the memories replayed. "We were called to a break-in," he began. "The suspect had taken a child hostage inside the house. Before we could even breach the door, Rex broke free from my hold. He ran straight inside." Murmurs rippled through the room. "I chased after him," Mark continued, "and by the time I got in, the place was filled with smoke. The suspect had planted explosives, a timer was running. Rex was dragging something across the floor." He paused, his voice thickening. "It was her. He pulled the little girl out just seconds before the explosion." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. The child looked at Rex again, her small lips quivering. "He didn't leave me," she whispered. The judge leaned back, eyes glistening. The gallery was silent, moved beyond words. The image was clear now. A brave police dog risking everything to save a child who couldn't even say his name back then. Rex shifted slightly, resting his head on Mark's knee. The truth had finally been spoken, and the entire courtroom could feel it. When the judge finally called for a recess, the tension that had held the room captive broke all at once. People whispered in disbelief, others wiped tears from their eyes. Even the court reporter had stopped typing, frozen by the emotion flooding the air. Officer Mark Jensen stood slowly, resting a hand on Rex's back. The German shepherd's tail swayed gently, sensing the shift in energy. Across the room, the little girl slid down from her chair. Without a word, she began walking toward Rex, her bunny dragging behind her. The security guard tried to stop her, but the judge raised a hand. "Let her," he said softly. All eyes followed as the child crossed the courtroom floor. Rex remained still, ears lowered, his deep brown eyes fixed on her. When she finally reached him, she didn't hesitate. She wrapped her tiny arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but it echoed louder than anything that had been said all day. Mark blinked back tears. The dog didn't move, only leaned into her touch, as if remembering that terrible night too. The once cold courtroom had transformed into a place of pure warmth. A moment of humanity no verdict could define. When the courtroom reconvened, the air felt lighter, as if everyone had already heard the verdict that truly mattered. The judge cleared his throat, but his voice carried warmth instead of authority. "This court recognizes Officer Mark Jensen and his K-9 partner, Rex, for their extraordinary courage," he said. "Their actions saved an innocent life. True justice isn't just about laws. It's about humanity." Applause filled the room, hesitant at first, then rising like a wave. The little girl, still clutching her bunny, stepped forward once more. The judge smiled kindly and handed her a small medal, the Medal of Valor. "Would you like to give it to him?" he asked. She nodded eagerly and turned to Rex. The German shepherd lowered his head as she hung the medal around his neck with both tiny hands. "Thank you, hero dog," she whispered, her voice trembling with sincerity. Cameras flashed, capturing a moment that would spread far beyond the courtroom, a moment that needed no translation. Rex blinked slowly, then gently licked her hand. Mark swallowed hard, pride and emotion blending in his chest. The case might have ended, but something greater had begun, the story of a bond that would never fade. Some heroes carry badges. Others simply wag their tails.